Welcome to a special edition of Telco CyberTalk. In this edition, Allot CEO Erez Antebi sits down with Ed Amoroso, former AT&T executive and the CEO of TAG Cyber. During their conversation, they're going to discuss the future and the value of service providers as security providers. Erez will also share his vision for the future of 5G network protection, the challenge of moving from 4G to 5G, and the potential for giving operators safe networks and safe services for their subscribers, whether they're mobile, at home, in the office, or on the go. Stay tuned, and you'll even discover what a communication service provider has in common with the water company. Are you intrigued? Let's go.
Hi, this is Ed Amoroso from TAG Cyber, and I want to welcome you to our discussion today. I have my good friend Erez Antebi, who is the CEO of Allot and an industry veteran, and we're going to learn quite a bit today about how Allot improves both users, like say individuals and families, and also small businesses in their quest to reduce cyber risk. Erez, it's very nice to see you.
Good to see you too, Ed. Thanks
Hey,
for having me.
why don't we start? Just give us maybe the brief elevator speech or thumbnail on the company, which I think is fascinating what you do. And then we'll dig into some of where you came from, the tech, and maybe some future predictions. But just a brief summary would be a wonderful way to get started.
Sure, with pleasure. We're a publicly traded software company. We're targeting communication service providers globally. And our main goal and mission in life is to enable the communication service providers, the ISPs, to secure the internet connection for consumers and small businesses. In other words, as we see the rise of threats on the internet, we believe that the internet access pipe that the service providers are bringing to the consumers should be secured by the providers themselves, not necessitate the consumers to do anything in order to get a secure access to the internet. And our goal in life is to make that happen.
You know, as you guys built the business, which has been growing dramatically, was it originally just the threat that drove the need here, like just a growing risk that people have both their identity and to their money and to their services and accounts? Was that really what drove this, just an observation that those risks were increasing?
I think it started our legacy, if you like, is actually in DPI, deep packet inspection. So what we've been doing for years is we've been providing software that sits in the core of the operator's network and basically looks at all the traffic and understands what's going on there. And we were looking for ways, how do we bring a lot more value both to the operator and to the end user, to the consumers? How do we bring value from everything that we're seeing going on there? And it became obvious as we saw the threats grow and as we saw more phishing attempts and ransomware attempts, et cetera, it became pretty obvious that consumers were not able really to protect themselves against that. And we were sitting on all this information, and it all flowed through our software. And we just told ourselves, hey, we can take a look at this and we can protect them. We can filter it in the network before it ever reaches anyone. And that's how it got started.
It would seem to me that concept should resonate, because just about everybody understands that the way you get to the internet and the way content comes to you is through your service provider. It's probably the one common denominator that we all deal with. Did you find, as you've been building and growing the business, has that been something that people understand, particularly say non-technical folks, like a small business might not have security experts or even IT experts? Did they kind of get the concept?
I think when we talk to people and we run surveys globally in many countries, we see a few very interesting things. First of all, there's a very, very high level of awareness today to the threats on the internet, privacy, phishing, etc. People are concerned about it. Second, they do expect that the operators will protect them. It's much, I like to use the analogy of the water utility company. When I connect to a water utility company at home and they sell me water, I fully expect the water that they bring to my home to be clean and filtered and ready for consumption and safe. I don't expect them to bring me water with a whole lot of crap that I have to install a filter and a purifier and so on, just so I'm safe when I use the water. Same thing on the internet. People normally will expect the communication service provider that's bringing them the internet to filter the bad stuff out and just bring them what they want and safely.
How important has it been for you to make this really easy? Like to your point with water, there's not much I have to do. I'm assuming that end users don't have to go in and set up complicated configuration files or make a lot of complex decisions. Is the experience a simple one for individuals, families, and businesses?
Ed, it has to be. It has to be. It has to be so simple that the consumer, the family, the small business doesn't have to do anything. They just have to accept that somebody's taking care of them. Because as soon as you tell people, okay, you know what, here's a security app. It will safeguard your phone, your computer, whatever. All you have to do is download, click here, click there, you're done. As soon as you do that, 95% of people don't do anything. They are either concerned, they don't want to bother now, they don't know if it's a virus itself or it's protecting them, but they don't do anything. So it was very, very critical for us from the get-go to have this as completely zero touch, completely clientless, really a pure service that the consumer doesn't have to do anything.
I've devoted my life to try to get people to take security more seriously. I'm failing miserably at that. I'll just keep trying. Now let's talk about the service providers. I would imagine that the real work here is integrating. Tell me a little bit about that experience. Is every service provider the same, different? Are you able to use a common platform across multiple ISPs and CSPs? What's been your experience in dealing with that industry?
The platform is actually quite common across the various operators. There's not a whole lot of work on integration or customization or things like that. Not on the platform itself, not on the security aspects themselves. Those are pretty much common across the board. There are two areas where we do see the need for better integration and sometimes even customization. One is the I would say the onboarding process, where like every service provider will have their own portal, or they will have their own way of interacting with customers. And if you just want to even send information to the customer, you have to interface with that, and that requires some integration. And the other point is, on mobile networks, it's very, very easy. On fixed broadband, it's a little bit more difficult, because on fixed broadband, we have to put our security agent inside the routers. So we have to integrate with a wide variety of routers, which I think we've gotten very, very good at doing, and we know how to do that. But beyond that, it's really a very common platform.
To sort of simplify the architecture, and you and I both telecom. I spent my whole life there. I always think about at a broad level, the infrastructure that you're working with, these providers, is having kind of a core network, and then there's an edge where they're touching customers, and then there's a customer prem. Is that the right way to think of it, or just sort of opportunistically? Is that where you guys have gone to try to reduce risk? Am I thinking about that the right way?
You're thinking about it the right way, and we've come to the conclusion that we actually have to be in all these enforcement points. Because no, really, because when if you're on your mobile network, for example, then, and we want it to be zero touch, clientless, and so on. So we're not going to put anything on your device. So we have to be in the core network, because that's the only place where we see the traffic that's really coming to you, and we can filter it out there. But if you're working on your broadband at home, you're at home, you're working on your Wi-Fi inside the home, and so on. the most effective place for us to enforce security is actually on the router that's inside your home on-prem. Now, that router is controlled and monitored by the communication service provider. So we know how to do that. But this enables us a much higher degree of security, because if we're sitting in the router and we see traffic not only coming in and out of the home, but we see traffic that's going east-west inside the home, we can now differentiate and say, okay, this is the kid's computer, so we're not going to allow access to, I don't know, certain types of content. Or this is a thermostat, so it's not supposed to be streaming anything right now to Russia. So we can quarantine that if we need to. So by being inside the home, we can provide a much higher level of security than just sitting behind in the core. But we have to be in both. And the architecture of our solution is such that we have multiple enforcement points, both in the core and in the routers and on the DNS line as well. But all of them are managed by a uniform management system that is continuously updated with the latest feeds, threats, information, and so on. So we ensure that regardless what the access is, regardless if it's your broadband, regardless if it's your mobile connection, whatever, you're ensured the absolute latest and greatest security. Again, seamlessly to the consumer, we take care of that in the network.
Now, a lot of times in cybersecurity, we kind of break the protection into sort of visibility, where I can see what's going on, and then mitigation, where I'm fixing. I think you guys do both, right? Do I have that correct? Like you're pulling, you have observational capability where you can see what's happening, but in addition, I think you guys are in line and you'll block threats. Do I have that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. It's not enough just to see it. We have to, again, especially when we're talking about consumers and small businesses, it doesn't do much good if somebody told my mother, for example, that there is a phishing attack on her, she should do something about it. She's not going to do anything about it. As somebody, we want to take that responsibility off of her. We want to block that from happening to her in the first place. So we have to recognize the threat, we have to identify it, then we have to block it, and we have to do that online without any user intervention. That's the key to everything here.
What has been your philosophy about the progression of mobility? Because again, a lot of this is both there's wireline and sort of the more fixed infrastructure, but also this progression to 5G. What has Allot been doing in that area?
Well, we've been working very hard in the 5G area as well. Networks will, the networks globally will transition to 5G within the next, I don't know, depends which country, but in the next few years, 10 years, depending on the country and the different pace. As we move from 4G to 5G, there's going to be, I think, an order of magnitude growth in the threat. Because number one, 5G has a lot more bandwidth, so it's a lot more susceptible to attacks. Number two, there are many connection points to the internet on 5G. Unlike 4G, where it's basically all the connections are done in a few points, and you can protect those points and maybe get some level of protection. On 5G, it's all over the place. So you really have to be inside the network, and you have to mitigate much larger scale attacks. Now, we're luckily in a position where this exactly plays to Allot's strengths, because we have traditionally come from the operator's environment, from dealing with massive amount of throughput, of gigabits, terabits of information. So we know how to deal in real time with very high capacity networks. And we know how to deal with them, not just, like we said before, not just by identifying the threat, but also mitigating it in real time. And that's pretty unique to us. And I think that as we go into 5G, that creates for us, I think, a huge opportunity going forward.
So, in a sense, the primary customer for a lot is the providers. You know, for the end, it's funny, the end
Yeah.
users will benefit, but really you're doing business primarily with ISPs and CSPs. I hope a lot of them are watching today. Excuse the pun there, but I hope they're watching the discussion here. It's been my observation, and I think you and I have chatted about this in the past, that this is just a natural assumption moving forward that this just becomes something everybody's doing. Is that if you had to make one prediction, would it be that this really moves from maybe a discretionary or nice to have into an absolute must have? I mean, I know I'm in that camp, but am I reading that right, that this becomes eventually just something that every service provider is doing?
I think you're reading it absolutely correctly.
Uh,
If I look where we were, even 3, 4 years ago, when we would come to operators and tell them, look, you've got to transition from being just a broadband provider to being a secure broadband provider. You have to add value. You can't just dump all the bits into somebody's home device, whatever. You have to protect them. Most operators would tell us, it's a very interesting idea. Uh, and it was hard to get out of that hole. Even in the U.S., 3 years ago, none of the major operators were really interested in rolling out a network-based security and taking on that sort of responsibility. I think if I look at it today, that has changed dramatically. Basically, all the U.S. operators today are looking one way or another to start deploying a network-based security for their consumer and business customers. If I look globally, we're seeing more and more operators that are coming and say, okay, we understand we have got to be a secure broadband provider. It's part of our responsibility. Our customers, the operators' customers, they expect that of us. And if we don't do it, we'll be left behind. So I would guess that within some number of years, not too many, yes, it will be an absolute necessity, as they won't be able to have I would say, a transparent pipe that they don't care what passes on it. They'll have to secure it.
if there's some network operators watching us right now, what's the best way for them to be in touch with you? Is the website, or how should they contact you guys?
The best way or the easiest way, if they don't know us yet, is yes, the website. So that would be the easiest way to connect with us. And we've got people really globally all over the world. We work with operators everywhere, from North South America to Europe, Japan, Asia, Africa, Australia, anywhere.
Yeah.
We'd be very happy to work with them.
Chances are they know you already. So, well, listen, on behalf of my team at TAG Cyber, I so enjoy working with you guys. I'm a little biased because I just love this topic so much, but keep up the good work. It's good for the industry. It's good that you guys are doing what you're doing. It cleans up a lot of threat that I think gets lost, particularly with individuals. So keep up the good work. And I hope you're enjoying all the things, and I hope you're having a nice summer.
We are. Thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the nice words. Thank you.
And for everyone else watching, we'll see you next time.